Welcome to a wild ride through the Old West, where the medicine of the day wasn't just whiskey or snake oil, it was a powerful substance that fueled cowboys, outlaws, and doctors alike. From saloons to surgeries, it shaped the frontier's gritty spirit, leaving a legacy of innovation and danger. Get ready as we uncover the untold story of this controversial elixir in the Wild West. Origins. The story of the substance that would shape corners of the old Wild West began far from the dusty trails and raucous saloons of the American frontier. Its roots lay in the ancient practices of South American indigenous peoples, who chewed the leaves of the coca plant for centuries to combat fatigue and hunger in the high Andes. By the mid-19th century, this botanical curiosity caught the attention of European scientists, setting the stage for its transformation into a potent and controversial medicine of the day. In 1859, German chemist Albert Niemann isolated the active compound from coca leaves, creating a crystalline substance that would soon captivate the medical and commercial worlds. His discovery, achieved in a laboratory far removed from the lawless plains of the Wild West, marked the birth of a new era. By the 1870s, the substance was making its way across the Atlantic, arriving in the United States as a celebrated elixir, unbound by the regulations that govern such compounds today. It was a time when frontier towns like Deadwood and Tombstone thrived on chaos, and the medicine of the day found a ready audience among settlers, cowboys, and urban dwellers alike. Now, if you've enjoyed the story so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what's coming next is something you definitely don't want to miss. Initially, the substance was hailed as a miracle cure, a panacea for ailments ranging from toothaches to melancholia. Pharmacies in burgeoning western towns stocked it in various forms like powders, tonics, lozenges, and even wines. These products, often marketed with grandiose claims, were as common as whiskey in saloons or dry goods in general stores. One notable concoction, a popular soda born in the 1880s, originally included trace amounts of the substance, blending it with caffeine to create a stimulating drink for the masses, though the formula was later changed by 1903. Such accessibility reflected the era's laissez-faire attitude toward medicinal substances, where oversight was minimal and experimentation was rampant. But it did not end here. Doctors and dentists on the frontier embraced the medicine of the day for its remarkable properties. As a local anesthetic, it numbed tissue effectively, making it a staple for minor surgeries, dental extractions, and wound care in an age when medical facilities were often rudimentary. A cowboy with a cracked tooth in Cheyenne or a miner injured in a Nevada boomtown might find temporary relief through a physician's application of the substance. Its ability to energize and alleviate pain also made it appealing beyond clinical settings, particularly for those enduring the grueling demands of cattle drives or prospecting. Even with all the benefits, something perilous was growing. The substance's allure extended into the social fabric of the Wild West, where it mingled with other recreational vices. While whiskey dominated saloons, the medicine of the day found its way into urban dens where patrons consumed opium or took other substances recreationally. In cities like San Francisco or Denver, these dens were often associated with marginalized communities, particularly Chinese immigrants who faced intense scrutiny. The association of the substance with Chinese laborers, often stereotyped as opium users, fed into broader xenophobic narratives. These early prejudices, rooted in fear and misunderstanding, laid the groundwork for later moral panics that unfairly targeted specific groups. The lack of regulation allowed the medicine of the day to permeate all levels of society. Patent medicines, sold by traveling salesmen or advertised in newspapers, promised vitality and cure-alls, often containing the substance in undisclosed quantities. Cowboys, gamblers, and even respectable townsfolk might partake, unaware of the risks. Some, seeking relief from the physical and mental toll of frontier life, developed a dependence on these tonics, their health quietly eroding. Reports of individuals found in distress or lying unresponsive began to surface, though such cases were initially dismissed as isolated incidents. By the late 1880s, the substance's dual nature, as both a medical marvel and a potential danger, began to emerge. Its widespread availability, coupled with glowing endorsements from physicians and advertisers, ensured its place in the Wild West's chaotic landscape. Yet the seeds of concern were sown as stories of dependence and health crises grew. This tension would eventually lead to a reckoning, but in its early days, The medicine of the day was a symbol of progress, a fleeting promise of relief in a world defined by hardship and hustle. But how useful was this substance important to them? Curious to find out? Stay with us. Use in the Wild West. The old Wild West, a vast expanse of cattle drives, bustling boomtowns, and untamed frontiers stretching from the 1860s into the early 1900s, was a place of relentless hardship and fleeting pleasures. Into this rugged world, the substance found a foothold, weaving itself into the lives of cowboys, outlaws, settlers, and townsfolk. Its versatility as a stimulant and anesthetic made it a curious companion to the era's grit, used in saloons, medical tents, and even on the open range, though its role was less iconic than whiskey or guns. Cowboys, the nomadic heart of the West, faced grueling conditions on long cattle drives from Texas to Kansas railheads. Days in the saddle, battling dust, weather, and exhaustion, left many seeking relief. The medicine of the day, often packaged in patent medicines like tonics or powders, promised to restore vigor or dull aches. A cowboy might sip a revitalizing elixir bought from a peddler in Abilene, unaware it contained the substance. These remedies, peddled as cure-alls, were as common as hardtack, offering a fleeting boost to men worn down by the trail. Some developed a dependence on these tonics, their reliance growing unnoticed until they were found in distress, slumped in a bunkhouse or beside a campfire. In frontier towns like Dodge City or Tombstone, the substance circulated in less medicinal guises. Saloons, the pulsing hubs of Western life, were more than drinking dens. They were places where vices intertwined. While whiskey flowed freely, the medicine of the day appeared in powders or mixed into drinks, offering a sharper edge to revelry. Gamblers, prostitutes, and drifters might partake, sometimes alongside substances consumed in dens where opium was taken recreationally. These dens, often run by or associated with Chinese immigrants in urban centers like San Francisco, were unfairly demonized. Racist stereotypes painted Chinese communities as purveyors of vice, amplifying fears about the substance and other drugs. Such narratives ignored the broader social context where use crossed racial and class lines. Medical applications were equally significant. In an era of crude surgery and limited pain relief, the substance's anesthetic properties were a godsend. Frontier doctors, often working in makeshift clinics, used it to numb wounds or ease dental extractions. A miner in Virginia City, his hand mangled in a rock slide, might owe his survival to a physician's deft use of the medicine of the day. Dentists in growing towns like Denver applied it to soothe patients, making it a staple in their kits. Its ability to constrict blood vessels and deaden nerves was revolutionary, though its risks were poorly understood. Some patients, seeking repeated relief, developed a dependence, their health declining as they lay in distress after overuse. The substance's social reach extended beyond saloons and clinics. Respectable citizens like merchants, housewives, even clergy encountered it through patent medicines, marketed as remedies for fatigue, headaches, or nervous conditions. Advertisements in newspapers like the Tombstone epitaph touted syrups and lozenges, often laced with the substance, as essential for modern life. These products, unregulated and widely available, blurred the line between medicine and indulgence. In remote homesteads, settlers might rely on such tonics to cope with isolation, unaware of the consequences. Stories emerged of individuals lying unresponsive, their bodies overwhelmed by doses hidden in healthful elixirs. While the medicine of the day was not as ubiquitous as alcohol, its presence fed the Wild West's chaotic allure. Outlaws like the James Younger Gang or saloon patrons in Deadwood likely encountered it, though evidence remains anecdotal, preserved in letters or sensationalized dime novels. Its use reflected the era's reckless spirit, where innovation and danger rode side by side. Yet, as the 1890s dawned, whispers of harm grew louder. Tales of dependence and individuals lying in health, unable to function, hinted at a darker side. The substance, once a symbol of progress, was beginning to cast a shadow, setting the stage for the regulatory battles that would redefine its place in the fading frontier. Was there any impact? Stay tuned as we find out. Cultural impact. The Old Wild West, a mythic crucible of lawlessness and ambition from the 1860s to the early 1900s, was shaped by its icons, gunslingers, saloons, and sprawling cattle trails. The substance, known as the medicine of the day, carved a quieter but no less potent niche in this cultural landscape. Less celebrated than whiskey or six-shooters, it nonetheless left an indelible mark, threading through the social, medical, and moral fabric of frontier life. Its presence amplified the Wild West's reputation for reckless indulgence while sowing seeds of division that reflected the era's deeper tensions. In the popular imagination, the Wild West was a place of unfettered freedom, where rules bent and vices thrived. The medicine of the day fit seamlessly into this ethos. In saloons from Cheyenne to Tombstone, it circulated among gamblers, outlaws, and drifters, often as powders or laced tonics, adding a sharp edge to late-night revelry. These settings, where whiskey flowed and substances were consumed in dens or taken recreationally, became stages for the substance's allure. Such dens, particularly those associated with Chinese immigrants in urban hubs like San Francisco, were unfairly vilified. Sensationalized accounts in newspapers and dime novels painted these spaces as dens of moral decay, fueling racist stereotypes that scapegoated minorities for the spread of vices, including the substance, while ignoring its widespread use across all communities. The substance's role in medicine further cemented its cultural footprint. Frontier doctors and dentists, operating in a world of rudimentary tools, hailed it as a revolutionary anesthetic. Its ability to numb pain during surgeries or dental work in towns like Deadwood or Virginia City made it a symbol of progress, a beacon of modernity in a rugged landscape. Yet, this medical marvel came with a shadow. Patients who relied on it for relief sometimes developed a dependence, their lives unraveling as they were found in distress or lying in health. These stories, though less glamorous than tales of shootouts, seeped into the public consciousness, shaping perceptions of the medicine of the day as both miracle and menace. But there's still more. Patent medicines laden with the substance became cultural artifacts in their own right. Advertised in newspapers like the Dodge City Times or sold by traveling hucksters, these tonics promised vitality to cowboys, settlers, and townsfolk alike. Brands like Dr. Pierce's favorite prescription, or Vin Mariani, a cocaine-laced wine, were as ubiquitous as saddles, their bold claims embedding the substance in everyday life. Housewives in remote homesteads or merchants in growing towns might consume these elixirs, unaware of their potency. The cultural normalization of such remedies blurred the line between medicine and indulgence, reinforcing the Wild West's ethos of self-reliance and risk-taking. Yet, when users were found lying unresponsive, these products began to stir unease, hinting at a darker undercurrent. The substance's cultural impact was also shaped by emerging moral panics, often tinged with racial and class bias. By the late 1880s, fear-mongering narratives linked the medicine of the day to marginalized groups, particularly black laborers and Chinese immigrants. Exaggerated stories of frenzied behavior or supposed moral corruption spread by yellow journalism unfairly targeted these communities. Such prejudices ignored the reality that use spanned all levels of society, from saloon patrons to respectable citizens. These early stigmas laid the groundwork for later drug scares, distorting the substance's role in the broader cultural narrative. In literature and lore, the medicine of the day was less prominent than whiskey or gunfights, but still left traces. Dime novels, the pulp fiction of the era, occasionally referenced mysterious powders or elixirs, feeding the myth of the Wild West as a place of unchecked excess. While no outlaw was explicitly tied to the substance, figures like Billy the Kid or the Dalton Gang likely encountered it in saloons or through medical use. Its subtle presence in these stories amplified the frontier's chaotic allure, a place where innovation and danger danced closely. As the 1890s brought growing scrutiny, the substance's cultural legacy began to shift, foreshadowing the regulatory crackdowns that would tame both it and the Wild West's wild spirit. Decline and regulation. The old Wild West, with its sprawling frontiers and untamed spirit, began to wane by the late 19th century, and with it, the unchecked reign of the substance known as the medicine of the day. Once celebrated as a cure-all and stimulant, it faced growing scrutiny as its dangers became undeniable. From the 1890s onward, a confluence of medical revelations, social anxieties, and legislative efforts reshaped its place in the fading frontier, marking the decline of its casual use and the rise of regulation that would redefine its legacy. In the 1880s, the medicine of the day was still a fixture in Wild West life, from saloons in Tombstone to pharmacies in Denver. Cowboys on cattle drives and townsfolk in boomtowns relied on tonics laced with the substance, while doctors used it as an anesthetic. But cracks in its reputation emerged as stories of harm multiplied. Individuals who developed a dependence were increasingly found in distress or lying unresponsive, their health eroded by repeated use of patent medicines or powders. These cases, once dismissed as rare, grew too frequent to ignore. Newspapers like the San Francisco Chronicle began reporting on maniacal behavior linked to budgets for medical use dwindled, and by 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act required labeling of ingredients in products, exposing the substance's presence in many popular remedies. This transparency empowered consumers but also fueled public alarm as the risks of dependence became clearer. By the early 20th century, the Wild West was transitioning from lawless frontier to a more settled society, and with this shift came a push for order and reform. The medicine of the day, once a symbol of progress, became a lightning rod for moral and social concerns. Sensationalized accounts in the press unfairly tied the substance to marginalized groups, particularly Black and Chinese communities. Racist narratives, amplified by yellow journalism, portrayed these groups as prone to frenzied or criminal behavior under the substance's influence, ignoring its widespread use across all social strata. Such prejudices, rooted in fear and xenophobia, shaped public perception and drove calls for control, scapegoating minorities while downplaying broader societal reliance on the medicine of the day. The turning point came with federal intervention. The 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act was a first step, mandating that products disclose their contents, including the substance. This law, born of progressive-era reforms, ended the era of unregulated patent medicines, which had proliferated in frontier towns. Consumers could now see what was in their tonics, and many were shocked to learn how common the substance was. Sales of these products, once hawked by peddlers in places like Dodge City, began to decline as trust eroded. Pharmacies and manufacturers faced pressure to reformulate or justify their claims, marking a shift from the Wild West's anything-goes ethos. The decisive blow came with the 1914 Harrison Narcotics Tax Act, a landmark federal law that effectively banned non-medical use of the substance. This legislation, reflecting a growing national consensus on drug control, required prescriptions for its distribution and imposed taxes to deter casual use. In the West, where saloons and dens where substances were consumed recreationally had once thrived, enforcement tightened. Sheriffs and federal agents began targeting illicit trade, a stark contrast to the frontier's earlier laxity. By the 1920s, the medicine of the day was no longer a casual remedy or saloon staple. Its recreational and unregulated medical use was largely confined to the black market. The decline of the substance mirrored the taming of the Wild West itself. As railroads connected once isolated towns and federal authority grew, the chaotic freedom that had allowed the medicine of the day to flourish faded. Its cultural legacy, tied to the frontier's reckless spirit, lingered in cautionary tales and dime novel exaggerations. Yet the regulations of 1906 and 1914 marked a new era, one where public health and social order took precedence over unchecked experimentation. The substance, once a hallmark of the Wild West's audacity, was relegated to the shadows, its story a footnote in the mythos of a vanishing frontier. And here comes something interesting. Keep watching. Legacy. The old Wild West, with its dust-choked trails and lawless spirit, faded into history by the early 20th century. But the legacy of the substance, once heralded as the medicine of the day, endures as a complex chapter in its mythos. Less iconic than six-shooters or saloons, it nonetheless shaped the frontier's cultural and social landscape, leaving traces in medical history, moral debates, and the collective imagination. Its story, marked by innovation, excess, and eventual regulation, reflects the Wild West's broader arc of untamed freedom, giving way to order. In its heyday, the substance was a hallmark of the frontier's audacity. Cowboys sipping tonics on cattle drives, doctors numbing wounds in makeshift clinics, and saloon patrons seeking a sharper thrill all embraced the medicine of the day. Its versatility as both anesthetic and stimulant made it a symbol of progress, promising relief in a world of hardship. Yet its darker side, evident in those who developed a dependence or were found in distress, cast a shadow over its allure. These dualities cemented its place in the Wild West's narrative, a place where risk and reward rode in tandem. Dime novels and early newspapers, while often exaggerating, captured this tension, weaving the substance into tales of reckless adventure that still define the era's mythos. The substance's legacy is also tainted by the era's biases. Late 19th century fears linked it to marginalized groups, particularly black laborers and Chinese immigrants, who were unfairly blamed for its spread. Sensationalized stories in outlets like the Tombstone epitaph painted these communities as threats, ignoring the substance's use across all levels of society. Such racist narratives, rooted in xenophobia, shaped early drug stigmas that persisted beyond the frontier, influencing modern drug policies and stereotypes. Acknowledging this prejudice is crucial to understanding the substance's cultural footprint, as it reveals how fear distorted its story. The regulatory crackdowns of the 1906 Pure Food and Drug Act and the 1914 Harrison Narcotics Act marked the end of the substance's freewheeling era. These laws, born of growing awareness of dependence and health risks, tamed the Wild West's laissez-faire approach to medicines. Pharmacies in towns like Deadwood could no longer sell unregulated tonics, and the substance's recreational use, once common in saloons or dens where vices were consumed recreationally, was driven underground. This shift mirrored the broader decline of the frontier as railroads and federal authority replaced chaos with structure. The medicine of the day, once a frontier staple, became a cautionary tale of unchecked experimentation. In modern memory, the substance's Wild West legacy lives on in popular culture, though often overshadowed by more romanticized symbols. The term cocaine cowboys, while popularized later by 1970s, drug smugglers and a 2006 documentary, evokes the frontier's reckless spirit, where the medicine of the day fueled both progress and peril. Its medical contributions, particularly as an early anesthetic, laid groundwork for modern pharmacology, while its social impact, marked by dependence and moral panic, foreshadowed ongoing debates about drug policy. The Wild West's embrace of the substance encapsulates an era of bold innovation and dangerous excess, a fleeting moment when a single compound could embody both the promise and the pitfalls of a vanishing frontier. That's a wrap on our journey through the Wild West's hidden history with the medicine of the day. From its rise as a frontier cure-all to its fall under regulation, this substance left a mark on the era's reckless spirit. Thanks for riding along. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold stories, and let us know in the comments what Wild West topic you want next.